Corded Books presents A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows by Diana Gabaldon, narrated by Robert Ian Mackenzie and directed by Kathleen Gormley. The author begins with the following introduction. One of the interesting things you can do with a bulge, i.e. one of the novellas or short stories, is to follow mysteries, hints and loose ends from the main books of the series. One such trail follows the story of Roger Mackenzie's parents. In Outlander, we learn that Roger was orphaned during World War II and then adopted by his great-uncle, the Reverend Reginald Wakefield, who tells Claire and Frank that Roger's mother was killed in the Blitz and that his father was a Spitfire pilot shot down over the Channel. In Drums of August, Roger tells Brianna the moving story of his mother's death in the collapse of a tube station during the bombing of London. But in An Echo in the Bone, there is a poignant conversation in the moonlight between Claire and Roger, during which we encounter this little zinger. Her hands wrapped his, small and hard and smelling of medicine. "I don't know what happened to your father," she said, "but it wasn't what they told you." "Of course, things happen," she said, as though able to read his thoughts. "Accounts get garbled, too, over time and distance. Whoever told your mother might have been mistaken. She might have said something that the Reverend misconstrued. All those things are possible. But during the war, I had letters from Frank. He wrote as often as he could, up until they recruited him into MI6. After that, I often wouldn't hear anything for months. But just before that, he wrote to me and mentioned, just as casual chat, you know, that he'd run into something strange in the reports he was handling. A Spitfire had gone down, crashed, not shot down. They thought it must have been an engine failure in Northumbria, and while it hadn't burned, for a wonder, there was no sign of the pilot. None. And he did mention the name of the pilot, because he thought Jeremiah rather an appropriately doomed sort of name. "Jerry," Roger said, his lips feeling numb. "My mother always called him Jerry." "Yes," she said softly, "and there are circles of standing stones scattered all over Northumbria." So what really happened to Jerry Mackenzie and his wife Marjorie, known to her husband as Dolly? Read on. And now, A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows.
It was 2 weeks yet to Halloween, but the gremlins were already at work. Jerry Mackenzie turned Dolly 2 onto the runway full throttle, shoulder hunched, blood thumping, already halfway up Greenleader's arse, pulled back on the stick and got a choking shudder instead of the giddy lift of takeoff. Alarmed, he eased back, but before he could try again, there was a bang that made him jerk by reflex, smacking his head against the perspex. It hadn't been a bullet, though. The off tire had blown, and a sickening tilt looped them off the runway, bumping and jolting into the grass. There was a strong smell of petrol, and Jerry popped the Spitfire's hood and hopped out in panic, envisioning imminent incineration, just as the last plane of Green Flight roared past him and took wing, its engine fading to a buzz within seconds. A mechanic was pelting down from the hangar to see what the trouble was, but Jerry'd already opened Dolly's belly, and the trouble was plain. The fuel line was punctured. Well,
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.